Hi, everybody. So as I just put in the chat, if you signed in with a different name, we'd appreciate it if you give us your name and email. So at the end of the webinar, we can send you a thank you email with a survey. And also if you want some follow-up consulting with Debbie, there'll be a link in there to sign up or a way to sign up. So thank you. My name is Barbara Gold, and I know many of you have been on these workshops before, so I'm going to talk really quickly. I'm a senior resource specialist at NPHD. Nonprofit Help Desk is a program of the JCC of Greater Coney Island. The JCC of Greater Coney Island has 35 program sites and serves over 2,500 needy people every day. The Nonprofit Help Desk's mission or goal is to help organizations with their organizational infrastructure, such as marketing, IT, fundraising. We do that through a variety of tools, such as workshops, consulting, and one-on-one help. We understand that you are resource constrained as a nonprofit, so our goal is to help you do it faster, more efficient, and just help you get it done. I want to tell you a little bit about Debbie now. Debbie has over 15 years experience in working in marketing, branding, events management, organizational development. Her most recent experience is in working for nonprofit and educational institutions, including social media and overall strategy for organizations. She currently works for the Girl Scouts of Greater New York, and I will turn it over to Deb. Oh, let me just do a little etiquette, please, on Zoom. We are recording this, so if you don't want to be recorded, please don't have your name in the chat, and also just turn yourself on mute. At the end of this session, as I mentioned, we will be sending an email. Debbie will be offering one-on-one consulting, and in there, there'll be a way to sign up. She's really knowledgeable and really good, so we encourage you to do that. And now I'll turn it over to Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for that introduction. Really happy to be here tonight with all of you. Appreciate for you all to take the time to participate in this workshop where we're going to focus about virtual engagement now that we have officially, maybe a year after, officially embraced our virtual environment, right? And as part of this presentation, I want us to talk about a little bit about virtual engagement. We're going to go into choosing the different platforms and why. Within the choosing the virtual platforms, we're going to talk a little bit about best practices when you are facilitating that could provide the support in the experience of that virtual engagement with your audience, and then a little bit about some of the resources that got us to that space. But before we begin, we are a relatively small group. I really would like to engage with all of you in a way that this really meets your what your expectations are of this particular training. We started with a question, but I really want to ask you all that are here, what are your expectations from today? What are you looking to gain from today's workshop when we're talking about virtual engagement? Is it, for example, I want to learn more about Zoom and the features that Zoom has. I want to know what to do while I'm running a workshop or a presentation or an event through our virtual platforms. Anything and everything, if you can help shape what you're looking to gain from this workshop, I invite you to either unmute yourself, I want to hear from you, or put it in the chat. Again, we are a relatively small group, and I want to make this as meaningful as possible for everyone that's involved in the conversation today. So with that, I'm just going to give a few minutes. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and share what their expectations are.
I'm just interested in learning new things on how to do things on Zoom with some of my youth. I am listening. I'm currently at home with my 2-year-old son, so he's kind of busy and I'm trying to make dinner. So I've got you guys going to the background. I figured I'd pop in and just give you guys my little opinion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That is definitely a good example of the scenarios that we all participate in when we are facilitating workshops virtually, right? We are not different from having to get in the car or go and travel to one specific location where you are solely dedicated to being in that time and space. Now we have the opportunity to not only participate, but also do other things. And that is the space where we all want to be, is understanding how do we engage through these virtual platforms to ensure that when you're delivering something or you're engaging your audience, it's meaningful for everyone involved. So this is definitely something that we will get into as well. Jill mentioned about the breakout sessions. That is, now I'm happy to say that all three, Zoom, Google Meet, as well as Microsoft Teams, they do that. So we'll walk a little bit about that. Something that's going to happen today is, in terms of slide deck, there's not a lot of slide decks to talk about, the virtual engagement. It's more about showing you all the features in real time. So I do invite you that if you see something that you're like, wait, hold on, you need to stop back. Can you repeat that for a second? Please stop me. If you have questions on the moment, please stop me on the moment. I'm happy to navigate or expand a little bit more based on the conversation. So with that said, let's just jump right in. Let's go. Whoops, sorry, wrong way. So virtual engagement. What is defined as virtual engagement? We have virtual engagement is specifically a metric to determine the level of affinity between a company, or in this case, an organization, and its customers, in this case, also the clients or the members. In today's internet economy, few things matter as much as marketeers as the intensity of the feelings a customer has towards the brand or the product or of a given organization. When we put it in the mindset of a nonprofit organization, it's about services and how engaged are you with the community and the constituents within your community. How are they engaged with your brand? How well known is your brand within that community? Is the organization well known? Does people don't know what is it? And that's really important. That is defined as virtual engagement. But most recently, in the last year or so, given the environment that we've all been living, virtual engagement is also a way to maintain a connection with your team and staff and build that community of support that support your mission and your vision. So it has not only become sort of like, yes, it was intended before pandemic as a tool of, I need to engage with my clients, I need to engage with my customers, I have to have a brand. But with that said, now it's sort of like, how do we engage on an ongoing basis? How can I use this tool to, when I'm having multiple meetings virtually, how do I keep people or my clients or my members engaged ongoingly and be able to give them that same feeling as we were in person, right? Because there is that aspect of, when I'm in person, you convey. People tend to say, I don't know if you all heard this, but you feed from the energy in the room. So how do you set the space within a virtual environment where you're actually providing the opportunity for people to feed from your energy as you're delivering the content in this virtual environment? So a few things, we're going to walk into all of these things and be able to talk about ways and tools that you can identify and use in order to create that environment in this virtual world. So let's talk a little bit about how all of these platforms have transitioned within this environment. There are obviously numerous amount of platforms that provide voice conferencing opportunities, right? For most of us, before last year, we had only heard about Skype, like Skype for business or Skype for personal use. And that was predominantly something that was very simple. It was just about being able to see someone else and make it feel like you're having a conversation and you're sitting in the same room. Google had already integrated what they called way back when Google Hangouts. So everything has evolved within the last year, including Zoom and Google Hangouts. Now it became more as Google Meets. As you can see here, we have within the last year, the impact that this virtual environment has provided an opportunity for all these platforms to really grow. And they have been frequently hearing for feedback as to how can they improve that experience so they can really engage with the people that are within that call. So for example, really clear here, Zoom, they went from 26.4% of their market share, they increased by 22%, meaning almost no one knew about Zoom before this pandemic. It was very corporate environment, and it was not necessarily something that as so an individual will be aware of. Now it's, I believe there's even some language coming on some words, or zoom me in, or things of that nature. It becomes more of a day-to-day. The same thing with Google Meets. Google Meets, it was really interesting. You can see here, almost no one knew before 2020. It was recently launched, the Google Meets. It was barely known. Now it has a market share of 21%. So you can see that the trend that you can see in these platforms is that they're being utilized and they're needed. And this is not going anywhere. And I think I want to share that because it's not going anywhere, it's something that we need to learn. How do we incorporate it in a way that it becomes part of what we do every single day, even if it is for our clients, for our services that we're providing, for the community that we're serving, or even if it is for our staff, or for our own teams. So we can still feel connected, even though we're not necessarily sitting in the same space. I want to highlight here something that it was very interesting, because GoToMeetings, which is the last one on the list, highlighted here, it actually declined. So the one Google Hangouts and Google Meet and GoToMeetings, at one point, GoToMeetings and GoToWebinars, now the GoToWebinar has become more of a interesting knowledge, more aware of in the marketplace as an engagement platform. But GoToMeetings at one point was sort of the base of any corporation or any business to have a safe space to facilitate virtual meetings. And now it's not necessarily that. And it could be for various reasons, but it just was an interesting way of one product was well positioned before all of this, and all of a sudden it's not necessarily keeping up with the needs of the audience that is currently using it. Hence why Zoom, which is very easy to use, became that top. Any questions about this? Google Meet is free, but everything that you see here has a free option with limitations. But if you wanna experience some of the premium features, like for example, breakout sessions and polls and things of that nature, the free versions of most of this do not provide you with that opportunity. So you will need to pay for a year subscription if you want to, for example, with Google Meets, to have a breakout session or use the polls in that way. So,
Debbie, there was also a question about WebEx. Do you have any feedback on that, what it's good for?
I have not very familiarized with it, but I can certainly do some research and find out more about that. It does, when I was putting together the information about this presentation, it did come up as a very one of the top 10 video conferencing platforms that are being used currently.
And I have another question is, on Zoom, I always get confused. There's a webinar and the, I'll say, workshop. Which do you recommend when, or are you going to cover that?
So let's continue the conversation and we'll go into that. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about choosing your platforms and what to take into consideration when you are looking to choose the best platforms for your events or for your meetings. And we're going to focus on Zoom, Google Meets, and Teams for the time being. But if you would like to learn a little bit more about a different platform, feel free to sign up and we'll be able to have a one-on-one to make sure that depending on your goals for that particular either event, conference, or meeting, that you're setting yourself and your participants for success for engaging in these activities. So this is just a quick framework as to what to do or what to look for when choosing the right platform for you and for your event. You need to take the following factors into consideration. So you're going to look at cost. Do you have a budget for this? When we're talking about budget, it's not like, okay, an individual license. If it's going to be as an individual person, then there is that cost. For example, I have my own Zoom account for which I pay a subscription for in order to benefit from the features that Zoom has to offer. And the cost annually, it's about $160, if I'm not mistaken, but we will confirm that. It is $14.99 per month, just so you know. However, as a organization, if you're purchasing a business license for an organization, you pay a premium. And in addition to that, let's say you want to add licenses. I believe they give you up to 10 licenses for a certain price, and then $25 for extra licenses for your staff. So take into consideration that in order to benefit from a lot of the features that you can use in any platform, including Microsoft Office, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meets, you will need to invest. There are opportunities to use the platform at no cost, as Jill mentioned. All three of them, there is an opportunity at no cost, but it does limit the capacity of how many people can be in those calls, the length of time for those calls, and the specific features. For example, the polling and the breakout sessions. Those are some that if you are using the web free version, you will not get access to. So that will have an impact on how you engage with your participants. You have to look into the ease of use, meaning the setup itself. All of these have the opportunity, the unique opportunity that they're all web-based, and you have an opportunity to also download them into your desktop, meaning you can have an actual app in your desktop. The other opportunity within all these three platforms is that they're also accessible through your cell phone. So you can download it on your app on your cell phone. You can download it as a desktop application as well, or use it simply as a web-based platform. You do have to have some features in your computer setup. For example, some downloads, especially with Zoom and with Google, Teams, require a specific system operations to be installed in your computer in order to, for example, use a background, so you're not showing what's behind you. And some of those are expressed when you're downloading the application. So just take into consideration the ease of use, how much are you willing to spend in regards to setting it up, and where do you need to access it from? It's not only for yourself, but who your audience is. If you have an audience that doesn't necessarily will have an access to a computer, then think about the features that they will need to have on their phone in order to be able to enjoy or join you on the conversations. That leads me into the features. The other piece is the compatibility tools. When I say tools, compatibility tools, it's about, for example, Zoom allows you to stream live. Again, all of these are features that are available through the premium cost and the subscriptions. So with that said, if you want to run a webinar or a meeting on Zoom, in order for you to be able to have access to live stream that on your social media channels, meaning it could be through LinkedIn or it could be even through Facebook, then you are eligible to do that by paying that subscription. Other features are something brand new also from Zoom is the closed caption. It's not the greatest, but when we're talking about being accessible and being inclusive, something that is very important is providing that space for everyone to feel they have a seat around the conversation, right? If there's someone that needs additional support, it could be, there's multiple ways for you to be able to engage with them. And that is the accessibility piece. The other thing that and this is something that is new, and you will see this taking place more now in all of the Microsoft Office tools, is the opportunity for closed caption as well. So just to give you an idea, I just shared my presentation that we're all looking at right now. And when I started to share Microsoft Office, when it did the upgrade, it automatically now asked me, do you want to do closed caption since you're presenting? So you're going to see that more often now. Just make sure that you have the right platforms, the most up-to-date softwares, and they're constantly downloading new and improved ways within all these platforms. So just make sure that you have the most recent one, so it's compatible with everything that you need to be doing. And then last but not least is the audience interaction. What is it that you want to deliver? What is the experience you want your audience to have? Is it through engagement, through games? There are interactive games that you can download, and then we're going to touch base on a few of these that we are very popular actually when you want to do either polling, if you want to do some games, or if you even want to do, if you are aware of them, the word clouds. It becomes very much as an interaction that gives an immediate impact or an immediate result. And that gives sort of like, I'm doing something, but at the same time, I'm getting something in return. So it's immediate interaction and engagement in that space. I'm gonna pause here. Any questions? We're good to go?
Debbie, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm curious about the closed caption feature. I've used the transcription feature in Zoom on several occasions, and it kind of works okay as long as it's sort of one speaker at a time. But even then, it still requires a ton of editing. It makes a lot of, so I'm wondering if the closed caption, is that like in artificial intelligence voice recognition?
Yes. So it is automatic. It's nothing too comprehensive or very high tech. It is something that the system just recognizes the voice and translates, and in terms of what they hear, and it types it on the bottom automatically.
Pretty accurate?
It is close, not as accurate as it could be. Zoom does have, Zoom, for example, is compatible with other closed caption platforms and tools that can be connected to Zoom as an extension. So the closed caption, it's more accurate. The one that is provided as a basic from your subscription with Zoom, it's somewhat accurate, but it definitely not necessarily everything that you need. But there are options out there, like additional tools and platforms that can be connected to your Zoom platform in order to provide your audience with the proper accessibility. There's some that even provide you with like translation in terms of language, or just the word per word. So it all depends on what you're looking for.
All right, thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Could you talk a little more about the transcription from Zoom?
Yes, so Zoom, when you're recording, Zoom does provide 3 documents. And one suggestion is, if you're going to record your meeting, always record to the cloud. What does this mean is that when you go to log into Zoom on your account through the web browser, you will be able to see the recordings in your account. There is, and we'll go through all of that in a minute, but what it means is that it's going to have 3 different documents when they're recorded. One is the video with the audio. One is only the audio. And then one includes the video, the audio, and the transcript on the side. So it goes from each one of them. It transcribes as you're speaking. So very similar to the closed caption, what they did is that now it provides the visual context transcribed as you're speaking. When, for example, I'm running this presentation, it has the second number, and it automatically transcribes the recording for you.
Another question, is that only good if you save the recording on cloud versus saving it to your computer?
No, it doesn't matter where you save it. The recommendation of saving it on the cloud is because it takes less space on your own hardware. So that way, one, you have access of it no matter where you are. You can have access to it. Otherwise, you will need to be in just that computer in order to be able to access it. The other thing that's also important to highlight here, I know we're focusing on Zoom, but Google Meet does have transcript, and it also has closed caption options when you are holding a meeting. So I just wanted to also highlight that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we move on? Older questions. Let's continue. So here is a very quick, and we can put this, specifically this slide, in a one sheet and send it over to you with a thank you message if you like. So this is very quick and easy, sort of like the Zoom, Google Meets, and Microsoft Teams application. And what are the plus, and we call it plus and deltas, but what are the benefits and not so great things about the platforms? And for example, what is it that you want to accomplish, and then be able to see what are some of the things that you that maybe you are not able to accomplish within these platforms. In this case, for example, Zoom gives you access, it is a free account. However, the free account only provides you with 40 minutes of a meeting. You didn't hear from me, but sometimes a way to go behind, around it is like, okay, people, the meeting is going to be over. It gives you the notification. Let's just cancel it, drop off and drop back on into the meeting. Sometimes that works. I'm not saying it works all the time, but if you need another 5 minutes or so, that will be helpful. They have updated, yes, it's something that's very good about Zoom is that we started with probably at the very beginning was maybe 16. And I tell you, because in my job with Girl Scouts, our meetings virtually have evolved from, okay, if you're holding a virtual meeting, you have to make space for 2 adults and 14 girls, because Zoom at the very beginning only allowed you to have 16 people in the same screen. So now it just continues to grow. Now we have a numerous amount of people that can be shown at the same time within one screen. So you don't have to like circle and go back to the next screen to see who's in there or how do you interact with them. So that is something that has changed. You can do screen sharing, you can do annotations, and we can go through that as well if you need me to. Or we can focus on doing an individual session, and I can walk you very detailed and through all of this. And the breakout sessions are an opportunity that you can set them up beforehand. I most recently did that, and it's really, really helpful tool. Like if you know beforehand where, for example, if you're working with a large group of youth and you know they're logging in, not logging, but their email address that they're logging in with, you can preset the breakout rooms and upload who will be participating in those breakout rooms. So it makes the work a lot easier instead of having to have someone dedicated while on the call to get people into those breakout rooms. That's definitely a plus that I've seen within Zoom that has improved immensely, and it's very, very helpful. In terms of security, Something that is very important when setting your meetings, and that goes with any meeting, is that you have accessibility as to how you set your meetings. It's very important that if you make them password protected, very important that if it's an open registration, before giving out the information about the Zoom, make sure that you're handing it off to the right person. Also have a plan, regardless of which platform you're using. Very rarely you will not get any type of security issues from Microsoft Teams, because that is very unique to a particular, and unless you share that link, no one else is going to get it. Very similar to Google Meets. But if it happens to be that someone randomly got the link and they are, you know, in there in your meeting, one of the techniques to do immediately is put that person in a breakout room, or move that person to a breakout room, and then remove them completely, right? So immediately you need to contain the situation and be able to get to that. So I'm just going through all these, just addressing some of the things that are in here. Google Meets, we know what Google Meets is. It does host up to 250 people for free. That is a limitation. The accessibility is from any device. There's no limit either in how many calls you can use the platform in. It is some of the limitations is that very different from Zoom, where multiple people, or you can request to share. It's only one person. And then Teams is very much for very private staff collaboration. It's used most of the time. Something that's recently new with Teams, Microsoft Teams, just so you know, you do have to have Office 365. You either have it with Outlook.com as your own individual email, or you will need to, if you purchase Office 365 as an individual, or your business has Office 365, that is what you will need in order to activate Microsoft Teams. So it's not as accessible. It's not a web application that you can just download and use Microsoft Teams alone. It is attached to a full set of other services that come with it. So it is a tool within the whole entire package. And it's really just recently, they're making more accessible, that if someone that you're inviting to your meetings are not part of your own Microsoft Office 365, they're still able to go into that. And we'll go into what this looks like in terms of Teams. It's very collaborative. You can track the documents within that same conversation, which is really, really great. So it has its own benefits in regards, but it does require a larger investment in regards to everybody in that same space in your organization needs to be under Office 365 in order to benefit from Microsoft Teams. Any questions about this? Okay. Any questions? Okay. So now we understand the platforms. We know which one gives us why. We are ready. We set up the meeting and we're ready to have the meeting. Now we're going to talk about how do we engage the participants when you're hosting the meeting. There are multiple ways of doing it. And here are some examples of the things that you can do when you're hosting a meeting, depending on what your goal is in terms of your expectations for engagement. You can use one or even multiple of them. Some examples are like, we started with the icebreaker. It could be related or not necessarily related. It's a conversation starter. It is a way we need to see these as an example of when you go out and you're networking or you're in person, what is it that you do? So how do you convert that experience into a virtual environment? And in this case is, okay, you're not necessarily in front of each other, like physically, but you're seeing each other. So You can use a question just to get people started using the chat, or invite them to participate and ask questions themselves. Going back to Barbara's question at the beginning, something that I did miss was, as we're asking, let's say you're using an icebreaker with Zoom. If you're using it in the context of where we are right now, this allows you, or allows your participants to unmute themselves and participate and use the chat. However, if you're in the webinar mode, it's not that simple. They can only participate or engage with you through the Q&A section, or they can only interact with you or the panelists through the chat. So there are some limitations. Usually webinars are being utilized for like 500 plus participants, because that way you can manage and monitor the conversation and control the variables. It's not like somebody's gonna completely take over the meeting, and you will have more access. So think about when you're thinking about Zoom or the platform that you're choosing, if it's a large event, and it's a large meeting, and you want to manage and control the how the conversation goes, just use a webinar. Most recently, there are conferencing platforms that focus specifically to giving an experience for the participant, very similar to an in-person conference. One of them, for example, that I've very well known recently, it's Hopper. So it has a landing page where it's called the main stage. And from the main stage, you can go into breakout rooms. The breakout rooms are managed differently and monitored differently. It's like having individual webinars inside a huge webinar platform. So think about that if that is something that you're looking for as well. So just wanted to point that out, because when I'm asking for, like, if I want to send out an icebreaker question, do I want people to participate by speaking, or do I want them to participate only on the chat? Using the chat feature, that leads me to using the chat features, right? I'm going to move along a little bit because I want to really go through all these. Using the chat feature, you can use, if everyone can see there's a 3 dots on the chat on the side. Me as the presenter can say, who can the people in the chat talk to? Can they talk to no one? So that will automatically disable it. Only to the host, everyone publicly, or everyone publicly and directly. So that means that you can choose who you want to talk to directly. Annotations. This is unique for certain collaboration opportunities. For example, if you want people to participate on sharing some of their ideas in real time, you use annotations. Otherwise, it's recommended to disable it. You can find the annotations on the top bar. In this case, on the bottom, I'm presenting, so it's on my top, but on the bottom, it says annotation, and you can use that as well. Polls, there are multiple ways to interact with polls. Zoom has them, so does Teams, and so does Google Meets. However, the version that has them is the most, is the subscription version. Have an interactive deck, slide deck. You can get creative with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you just have to have a still picture. You can have one picture and one slide, and the slide can be different things. Have video. It's all about getting creative. And then obviously, last but not least, the breakout sessions, which we already talked about. So I mentioned to you about engagement tools. So these are some of the tools that you can use in real time in these platforms. So we have Kahoot, and I'll stop sharing so you can see what that looked like. Polls Everywhere, which gives you the results right on time, and MentiMeter. Has any of you heard about any of these 3, or have used any of these 3 before? Okay.
I have heard of Kahoot, but I never used it.
Okay. I see that not a lot of people have heard it. Okay, mission accomplished. I taught something new. I'm just kidding. Great. So that's what we're here for. Let me just pass on. Before we go into Q&A, I'm gonna stop presenting this, and I'm gonna start presenting on my screen. Can everybody see my screen still? And it's the presentation, right? Okay, so this is Kahoot. Kahoot is very much predominantly used in school. It has games, it has questions, opportunity. It's very interactive. What it means is that you create your Kahoot. It gives, let's say it's a few questions, and then the participants are, you invite them to a particular Kahoot. It generates an automatic number that you tell them, use this number when you go into Kahoot. And then everybody's in the same room. Everybody's playing. One thing to know is the free version only provides an opportunity for 10 participants. If you want more than 10 participants, or you're looking to have more than 10 participants, you do have to pay for the subscription. However, it's something very fun and interactive. It provides opportunity to do like knowledge checking. When you're training, let's say you're delivering a training and you want to stop and say, okay, I want to do a knowledge check, but I want to make that fun. The way to make it fun is you can use Kahoot for that. You can ask the question and then they will be able to answer those questions. And the benefit of it, again, it's about they're participating and they're seeing the results in real time. Very much how we use the polls. It's like you create the poll, you ask the question, they see the results in real time, so that we all feel like we're all literally in that same room getting the responses right on time. So you can see, evaluate if this is something that you are interested in doing. It's very easy to set up. But it can definitely, one thing that it has evolved into, at the beginning, it was very focused on just for school, but now it has been adapted to more of a work environment and at home and how to use it and all of that. You can also access Kahoot through your phone, so that let's say you are on your phone and you're multitasking, being on the computer and the phone, participants can participate there as well. The poll everywhere, it's very easy to use as well. It does provide the opportunity to create your own, and then it will be your own landing page and you can change the questions. So again, if you don't have Zoom or Google Meet subscription or the subscription, paid subscription, you can use Poll Everywhere and still connect them to placing polls within your presentation and not necessarily pay for the subscription for both the Zoom and the Google Meet. So this is a very easy option to do that. And then we have MentiMeter, which is also very similar to Polls Everywhere as well as Kahoot. It is integrated. What you do is that you create your question and then be able to you send the menti.com, you put it on the chat or put it on the screen, give them the code for them to participate. So what happens is the screen shows a link for them to enter the code that you give them, and then they will be able to answer the question and they can see, let's say it's a word cloud. They will see the word cloud populate automatically on the spot as everyone is participating. So it really, really provides them with that interaction in real-time space in these three. Any questions around this?
Debbie, there's a question. Is there a real difference? So what's the Q&A versus chat? Do you recommend one? What do you think of them?
So the Q&A, it's only available when you have it in a webinar version. And chat is available for both in webinar version as well as the meeting version. I see a few hands up. So Rosangela.
Yes, thank you. Two questions. This Kahoot, I didn't understand if that's something you do in a Zoom meeting. So you want to do so and you open it via screen share,
Yes.
internet, the website. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The others for the last one you said, the MentiMeter, is it
MentiMeter.
available for if you have a Zoom with people outside the US? So how they would, is there internet numbers available?
Well, it's a web-based interactive tool. So all three of these are accessible as long as they have internet.
Okay.
So they're all web-based. That's why we're providing them as a tool or recommended as a tool, because it gives the opportunity that it doesn't matter where they are, they get access because they're web-based. They're not necessarily connected, or they don't need to be downloaded or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jeffrey, I see your hand. Sorry.
Will the deck be shared, this information be shared with the participants, or we should be taking notes?
We will be sharing this information. I'm happy to share this slide deck. And also, as Barbara mentioned at the beginning, I'm more than happy to set up an individual one-on-one with you and walk you more in detail about any
Okay.
questions in particular that you may have.
Okay.
Yes, I was sort of missing the Kahoots. So is there a free Kahoots and you can use that via Teams and Zoom, or is it exclusive?
No, it actually, you can use it with any platform. It could be used with Zoom, Google Meets, or even Teams. The free version of Kahoots only provides you with up to 10 people to participate. If you want more than 10 people to participate in the game, I call it the games, then you will need to pay a subscription. I think it's like $10 a month. But it is really an essential tool. Something else that is really unique about Kahoots is the fact that it actually, you can save the Kahoots, you know, the games or the interactions, and then that can become sort of like the platform for your organization or for your team, and say, oh, I have something that I want to do. You have already a library of pre-made questions based on what the content that you're sharing. So if you have a training, this is the Kahoot for the knowledge checking for this training. You can automatically plug and play without having to create it every single time. Any other questions? These are great questions. And we're almost at time. I want to make sure
Here's
that.
another question, Debbie. Do you have any ideas how to measure, I'm going to use the word engagement?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Any thoughts on how to measure engagement during a webinar or a workshop?
That's very interesting. In regards to measuring engagement or measuring anything altogether, is to look at what your expectations and your goals are as facilitators. What is it that you aim to accomplish? Do you want every single person? Is that the only way to define success? Or if at least 50% of your audience is participating, do you define that as success? Also, it is, for example, are they participate? What do you consider participation? Is it just writing on the chat, writing to each other, or asking questions? So in order to measure engagement, just define what is it that you look for as success within your event. Is it the outcome of the defining success that everyone or 90% of the attendees complete a survey? Then you will have to, that will be a measurement of success of your engagement, meaning that 90% of those that attended actually completed the survey. So you can define, you need to define what success looks like to you in terms of defining it, what it means to you in your particular presentation. What is the call to action, and if you were able to accomplish that. Harold, I see your hand up.
Yes, MentiMeter, like if you were in a meeting and you want to do a quick poll, is that where you use that website, MentiMeter?
You can use MentiMeter, and you can also use Poll Everywhere. So either one of those gives you the access to do a quick poll. Actually, all three. It all depends on what you're looking, which one is easier for you.
Okay. The other one is quick what? Quick?
So it's Poll Everywhere and
Everywhere.
and Kahoot. They all three give you access to creating polls and getting answers on the moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a good question, Crystal, in regards to the tools translating in real time. So that's a good question. I do not have the answer for it, so I will certainly look into that. I don't know if there is, for example, like a Spanish version of MentiMeter, or a automatic translated version of MentiMeter, or Poll Everywhere. I do know that if you write the question, you're given the question and the answers. So you have to customize it in order to get that poll. So the questions can be in the language that you're doing it. So the results will be reflecting on that. And the same thing happens with Zoom. For example, if you're doing Zoom polls, you get to ask the question in the language that you want, or that your audience is going to reflect in, and the answers will be right there. Will it be helpful to show you a poll, creating a poll on Zoom so you can see it? Yeah. Okay. So let's do that real quickly. I just want to make sure that I'm not. Want to be mindful of everybody's time. I appreciate everybody being here. Okay. So this is Zoom. This is actually the meeting. So I'm in my meetings right now. I'm in the see you there meeting. We're all here. And because I'm not editing right now, it shows the button join now because the meeting is live. Obviously, you can save this as a template if you plan to use the same settings for any other meeting. And then in order to create a poll, this one has no polls, but if I go and create add, this is what comes up. So you can do one poll that is launched individually, or you can do one poll and it has 5 questions. So you can do one or the other. So in order to do a poll, it says favorite. We can do favorite ice cream. And then the question is, what is your favorite ice cream? And then we can put vanilla, chocolate, dulce de leche. Don't like ice cream. Okay, so I have one question. It can have multiple choice. Then if I only want to say, if I want to add another question within that poll, I add a question and it's still within this same poll. And then you say, do you like chocolate? And you can make it simple, yes or no, right? So if I save it, I only have one poll right now, but that one poll has 2 questions. If I want to just add one question, I can just put
What are your toppings?
Yep.
What are your favorite toppings?
Toppings question. I said, which is your favorite topping? The topping here. Okay. I said chocolate, sprinkles. I don't know.
Nuts,
Whipped cream,
caramel.
whipped cream. Okay. I'm just using it as a sample. And I say, okay, save. So this one, now I have 2 polls. And then one has 1 question, another one has 2 questions. So let's practice this for a second. Okay, it's not letting me log in, send it because I need to log off, and I'm not gonna do that. But in any event, then you will go into your presentation and you will be able to activate the poll and be able to do it. So the way it looks when you're activating the poll is like this. So this is what you're going to see. You're going to see how many people of the people in attendance have voted. You can say 85%, 82%. I'm good with that. And then you'll end the poll, you exit the poll, and then you can share the poll afterwards. So a very similar button pops up and say share the poll with everybody. So that will be, now that you set it up here, you will see it as you're presenting. Yes, so I see, go ahead.
Quickly, there's one more question and then we're at 7 o'clock. Can you do polls in the waiting room?
Yes, and you can do annotations in the waiting room as well. You can record what's in the waiting room as well as individual. You can do all the features within the waiting room. What happens is that at least one person needs to have co-hosting rights in order to be able, within that room, in order to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see a few more questions. I think we're good. So let me just stop sharing here, and I'm gonna share the screen again with the presentation. So you can talk about the upcoming webinar. Well, thank you, everybody. I want to thank you all for being here. Before I pass it on to Barbara for closing us. Again, that we will share the link for the survey. I really appreciate your feedback on the information that you received today. And if you wish to do a one-on-one session with me and we can talk a little bit more about the different platforms, I'd be more than happy to do so. But again, thank you for being here today, and hope this information was helpful to all of you. And with that, I'll pass it over to Barbara.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And I want to thank Debbie for a great workshop. I also wanted to thank our sponsors, which are New York City Councilmen Lori Cumbo, Chaim Dorj, Farah Lewis, and Mark Trega, and the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development. As we've said many times, we really would appreciate it if you would fill out the survey. And if you want to get some one-on-one help from Debbie, there's instructions in the email. Any more questions, feel free to email me at b.gold@nphd.org. And also, please attend our upcoming workshops. There are 2 left in this series, but you can always reach out to NPHD for help, consulting help, or other questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you.